Welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. We're going to start with a few opening prayers. These prayers help to get our mind in the right place so that we can receive the teachings. So the link to the prayers is in the description right below the video on YouTube. There's a link to the prayers there, and we're going to chant these in Tibetan. But since we're all in the comfort of our own homes, if it's easier for you to say these in English, go right ahead. It can be a little bit difficult to chant in Tibetan if you're not used to it, so feel free to follow along in English. This first prayer we'll do 3 times, and then the next ones we'll do 1 time each. Organ yugi numjan sam pemage sa dompola yatsen chogi ngodrubne pemajung ne jesurak kordu kandro mangpo kor ketki jesu dak drupki jinji lob chia sheksu so Guru Pema Siddhi Home Organ Yugi Numjan Sam Pemage Sa Dompola Yatsen Chogi Ngodrupne Pema Jungne Jesurat Kordu Kandro Mangpo Kor Ketki Jesu Dak Drupki Jinji Lob Chia Sheksu So Guru Pelma Siddhi Home Organ Yugi Numjan Sam Pemage Sa Dompola Yatsen Chogi Ngodrupne Pema Jungne Jesurak Kordu Kandro Mangpo Kor Ketki Jesu Dak Drupki Jinji Lob Chia Sheksu So Guru Pelma Siddhi Home Kunzan Dosem Garab Shiri Singh Pema Kara Jipan Nishunga Sozo Dugnak Tatan Gatsa So Kate Lama Namla So Wadem Ogmin Chuki Yinki Pojana Dusum Sange Kungi Ngowonit Rangsem Chuku Ngonsun Tonzepe Tawe Lama Namla So Wadem Sashi Bochu Chuching Meto Tram Rirab Ningzini De Kempadi Sange Zingdu Mikde Polwahi Droku Namda Jingna Chupashok Tram Guru Ratna Mandala Putsa Mega Samudra Saparana Samaye Ahom Semchen Namki Sampadang Loyi Jeja Jitawa Jechon Tomon Tekpai Chuki Korlo Kordu So Today I'd like to start our class with a brief breath meditation. This is a way that we can rest our minds, and usually when we want to rest, we get tired, we feel burnt out, we just get on our phones and scroll on Instagram or Facebook, or we put on Netflix, or even a lot of our healthier activities that we do to relax our minds actually is just a way of getting more involved in distractions and doing things that further instigate thoughts and concepts in the mind, and you don't actually allow the mind to rest. So what we're going to do is allow our minds to rest on the rhythm and the feeling of our own breath. And this is truly restful for the mind. Our minds are always chasing after thoughts and following emotions and vacillating between hope and fear. And there's just always this churning of activity that's going on that keeps us constantly moving in our minds. And so we're constantly distracted by our desires, we're limited by our judgments, and if we want to generate the mind of wisdom and compassion, the first thing that we have to do is we have to calm our minds. We have to stabilize some of this frenetic activity. So we start our meditation by first arousing a feeling of great love for all sentient beings. Although meditation does have benefits for us, it's got all these great physical benefits, like it lowers your blood pressure and there's all sorts of health benefits that meditation can have, and it does help us to feel more peaceful and relaxed. Really, the benefit of it is it allows us to be more helpful to others. When we stabilize our own minds and we're no longer swept away by our emotions and our unruly thoughts, when those are no longer sweeping us away and we can be stable in our good intentions and acting with our good intentions, then we can be of better benefit to others. So we are not just meditating for our own happiness, but we are actually meditating to awaken love and compassion. We are going to calm our minds so that we have space for love and compassion to arise. So just take a moment to arouse a feeling of great love for all sentient beings, and remember that this is our motivation, that we want to have more space in our minds so we can have more love and compassion for sentient beings. Sit with that. And then pay attention to how you're sitting. Sit comfortably, but straighten your back. A lot of times we tend to hunch over, especially if we've been on the computer a lot. So make sure your back's nice and straight. Straighten your neck. You can just imagine a little strings going up the back of your neck so that you have some good posture. And it doesn't matter how you sit. You can sit in a lotus position, you can sit cross-legged on the floor like I am, or you can sit in a chair. But what's most important is that you have a straight back. And you can place your hands in your lap. You either place them on your knees, or you can hold your right hand in your left hand with your thumbs lightly touching, and just hold your hands gently below your navel. And gently press the tip of your tongue right behind your teeth, like that. Just very gently. Your mouth is going to be open slightly. Your eyes are also going to be open slightly. And your eyes, you can just look slightly downward towards the tip of your nose. Just kind of follow the line of your nose and look downward. Your eyes are slightly open. Your mouth is slightly open with your tongue gently behind your teeth. Allow yourself to just relax completely and breathe normally. All of our senses are open. Our eyes are slightly open. Our mouth is slightly open. Our ears are open. We are totally open. And just breathe normally. Now put a very light attention on your breathing. Don't try to control your breath at all. Just breathe naturally and put the most gossamer thin attention on your breath. It's like taking your pulse. You don't put any pressure on it or try to change it in any way. You just gently observe it. Your attention is like a feather, gently riding on the surface of your breath. Your ego will try and take your attention away from that. It will try to distract you. But don't worry. Whatever thoughts come through your head, they're okay. Just let them pass on by. Don't worry if they're good thoughts or they're bad thoughts. When you find yourself following a thought, just drop it and return to your breath. If you find it difficult to dismiss your thoughts, you can imagine like spaghetti tongs picking up the thought and dropping it, or imagine cutting the thought with scissors and throwing it away. But no matter the method, when a thought comes through, just drop it and return to your breath. Return to that gossamer thin attention, feather just floating on your breath. And we're going to meditate for 5 minutes. want to talk about equanimity. We are living in an incredibly divisive time when facts no longer seem neutral, and something as simple as wearing a mask to protect the health of oneself and others is seen as taking sides. Our nation is still arguing about which kids deserve school choice and which kids deserve cages, which people deserve help and which deserve harm, and whether or not Black lives actually matter. The counterphrase being that all lives matter. But do they? Do all lives really matter to us? There's a phrase that I've been seeing on protest signs that I keep coming back to, and it's the phrase that all lives can't matter until Black lives do. And I think this calls out a very important point about how limited and superficial our concept of all is. We are content with the theory that all lives matter, but we are reluctant to do the work necessary to truly believe it and live it. We don't act like all lives matter. As aspiring bodhisattvas, we make the commitment to bring an end to the suffering of all beings. This is difficult because we don't have the habit of including all beings in our love. We habitually sort people into categories. These beings we like, these beings we don't like, and these beings, they have little effect on us, and so we're indifferent towards them, and we usually disregard them. If we are going to fulfill our commitment to end suffering for all beings, then we must address our habit of discrimination. The Buddha taught that we should treasure all beings equally. We should value our enemies and those we don't know just as much as we value our most beloved friends and family. To extend love and compassion to all beings, friends and enemies alike, without distinction, without discrimination, we have to have unshakable certainty that all beings equally deserve our love and compassion. Given our current state of bias, that may seem impossible, but it's not. It is both possible and necessary. As Jetsama Akon Lamo said, boundless equanimity is the basis of compassion and of a truly deepened, stable practice. To develop boundless equanimity, there are three aspects that we must contemplate. The first is the suffering of all beings, who are equal in their desire to find happiness. The second is the kindness of all beings, who are equal in having been our parents. And the third is the essential purity of all beings, who are equal in their true nature. When we think of the suffering of all beings, we don't normally think of the suffering of all beings as being equal. We tend to, judge whether this person has suffered more than this person, or, maybe, let's see, you might trade war stories and say, well, my parents were meaner than your parents, or, well, I saw an article in the news recently that was about which generation had it the worst. Millennials are the unluckiest generation in modern history. That was the headline. Millennials are the unluckiest generation in modern history. And we see this. We see generations compare their sufferings to the others. Well, we lived through this war. Well, we lived through this famine, or this, or this recession, or, and people want to argue about who suffered more. What a fun game. What a fun game that we like to play. But actually, the Buddha taught that all beings want to find happiness and avoid suffering. And all beings want to find happiness and avoid suffering, but their chances for happiness are undermined by their misguided attempts to achieve happiness. Sentient beings, ourselves included, do everything possible to fulfill their own self-centered needs, but their efforts, stained by hatred, greed, and ignorance, only create more suffering for themselves and others. This is because they don't know the causes for happiness, and they don't know how to eliminate the causes of suffering. It's said that those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And similarly, those who don't know the causes of suffering are doomed to perpetuate those negative actions again and again, creating endless cycles of misery. Because they just don't know any better. And we don't know any better. We do it too. We do it all the time, every day. We think our greed will make us happy. We think our anger will make us happy. We think our addictions will make us happy. We think that all sorts of things. We think that the gossiping with someone will make us happy. We think that lying to preserve our image will make us happy. Every single being that has created some atrocity, whether it's Jeffrey Dahmer or Hitler or Chairman Mao, everyone, all of these beings, no matter how many beings they killed or harmed, they thought that this was going to somehow bring them happiness. They thought that it would give them power, which would make them happy, or that it would eliminate their enemies and make them happy. And it's so misguided. It's easy to see in those extreme circumstances how misguided their actions are. It's more difficult to see that that's actually the actions of someone seeking happiness. You think, how could you possibly think killing someone's going to make you happy? But then watch your actions throughout the day and watch yourself lie to cover up something you did wrong. And why do you think lying is going to make you happy? Why do you think that any of the things that you do are going to make you happy? And we just don't know. We don't know what actually makes us happy. So our challenge is to drop our judgments and biases, including the distinctions that we make between victims and their aggressors. When a tragedy befalls someone we love, or even an acquaintance, we are moved to compassion. But when a tragedy befalls someone that we view as an enemy, we think they deserve it, and we rejoice in their suffering. This attitude doesn't help anyone involved, and it actually creates non-virtue. We think that if we get up on our high horse and we say, well, they did wrong, they deserve that somehow, that's another way. We think it's going to make us happy to be up on our high horse and judging these people that, well, they made this bad decision and so they deserve the repercussions. That attitude is not going to make you happy, and it doesn't help anyone, and it creates non-virtue, and it perpetuates the idea that you are separate from others. So it's really not helpful. Chagdad Tuku says, when we hurt someone with our words or actions, or just wish him harm, we actually harm ourselves. The karmic repercussion of hitting someone, for example, is much worse than the pain of being hit. The mind is a fertile field in which a single karmic seed can produce many fruits, just as a single apple seed can grow into a tree bearing hundreds of apples year after year. If an aggressor who has acted out of ignorance and confusion does not purify the karma he has made, his pain in the future will be much greater than that of his victim. It's as if the victim is now experiencing the consequences of having swallowed poison in the past, even as the aggressor himself is drinking a far deadlier dose. We need to find a way to help them both. So when we see stories in the news, or we have situations in our life in which we believe we need to take sides, and we feel habitually drawn to, labeling one group as others, as enemies. this is our side, that's their side. Um, these people are right, these people are wrong, these people are peaceful, these people are harmful. When we notice ourselves having that urge to draw a line in the sand and to take sides, to say, I'm on the side of this victim and these people are horrible, they brutalized this person, and we want to shame these people, and we want others to know also that we know that they're bad, and they don't, in that moment, we don't remember that they deserve our love too. So it's important in these times when you notice yourself doing that to reflect on the equanimity of all of the beings in this situation, and that actually the people who are creating harm in this situation will suffer far worse than whatever harm it is that they are inflicting on others in this present moment. And that actually, what's really tragic is this cycle of harm. That the person who is being harmed right now, whoever the victim is in this situation, they are experiencing that because they have unwittingly created the causes for it by harming others in the past. And this is the residual effect, this is the ripple effect of their past actions, that they are experiencing this harm now. And then here's this person creating harm now. Well, what are they going to experience in the future? They are going to experience so much harm because of this action they are taking now. So we can see that whole situation for the tragedy it is, and view all of the beings involved with equanimity. The next way to develop equanimity is to contemplate the kindness of all beings. The Buddha taught that we have taken rebirth countless times, and in the infinite cycles of rebirth that we have experienced, all beings have been our mother or father at one point or another. As Chagdud Tuku says, there are no real strangers anywhere. No matter how a being currently appears, or what their role is now, whether they're someone we know or don't know, whether we see them as an enemy or a friend, we have previously been as close to them as our own mother in this life. Not just once, but countless times. Chagdud Tuku says, all of us are like actors in a play who have forgotten who we really are, so we perceive each other as enemies or friends. Once we understand this, whether people are intimates or strangers, pretty or ugly, likable or not, becomes irrelevant. Instead of categorizing people, we can learn to overcome the limits of our compassion and treat all beings with the same loving kindness, responding to everyone we encounter with patience and compassion rather than anger or attachment. To fully appreciate the kindness of all beings, we should contemplate the kindness of our parents in this life. So our parents have given us this human body that we have, which is priceless and irreplaceable. No matter how rich you are, you cannot buy another human body for yourself. Even Jeff Bezos can't buy another body, Even if we have a difficult or distant relationship with our parents, we cannot deny that we wouldn't be here without them. Our mother carried us in the womb for 9 months, and then we were fed and bathed and protected, and they taught us how to walk and talk. Humans aren't the kind of, some animals are born and they just immediately, sea turtles pop out of their shells and they immediately head for the ocean. They can actually, once they emerge, they are able to do something. But human beings are not like that. When we're born, we are completely helpless. We are completely dependent on the kindness of our parents. We would die if they did not care for us. So we were helpless infants, but their kindness ensured we would survive. And here we are. Today, if someone pulled you from a burning building, you would feel immense gratitude that they had saved your life. But we forget that our parents have saved our lives again and again. keeping us from ingesting like ingesting toxic substances like bleach under the sink, keeping us from falling headfirst down the stairs, keeping us from burning our hands on the stove. They have protected us over and over and over again, and we take it for granted. We are appreciative when someone takes us out to dinner, or even just buys us a coffee at Starbucks. But we take it for granted that our parents fed us every day. And what kind of hardships did they have to go through in order to feed us every day? It's expensive raising a kid. So they had to work hard in order to get us food and take care of us. They had to wake up in the middle of the night over and over and over again to feed us or comfort us when we cried. They went through so much hardship for our sake. If we calculated the cost of our parents' care, years of food, shelter, bathing, housework, education, 24-hour, round-the-clock care, how much would that cost? I mean, think of how much it costs to hire a housekeeper, or how much it costs to, just to do your own grocery shopping, or to pay rent on your house, or how much it costs to go get a mani-pedi and have someone just be really, just care for you lovingly. How much does that cost? Now imagine how many years of your life did your parents care for you? And how much do you owe them? Their love and care is beyond measure. And this gift of this human life is priceless because it is the perfect vehicle for spiritual practice. So without the kindness of our parents, we would not have the opportunity of this precious human life in which we can turn our minds to the Dharma, we can practice the Dharma, we can come to understand the causes of happiness and the causes of suffering and make better choices and learn how to be of benefit to others. We wouldn't even have that opportunity if it weren't for the kindness of our parents. So we can contemplate the unparalleled kindness of our parents and recognize that all beings have been our parents. And then we can aspire to repay their kindness. When we understand the kindness that has been shown to us by all beings, we won't abandon them. Just like how if your baby were to bite you, you wouldn't love him any less, and you would continue to care for him. By contemplating in this way, we can feel that kind of committed love for all beings equally, where no matter what they do, we love them. No matter how they look, we love them. No matter whether we know them or not, we love them. Finally, the third one is the essential purity of all beings. And Chaganatuku tells us that the most profound way of developing equanimity is to recognize that the true nature of each and every being is a state of absolute purity. Ideas of self and other, good and bad, what we like and don't like, these are all concepts of the ordinary mind. They arise from the dualistic process of differentiating, judging, labeling, fixating on labels, and investing artificial distinctions with truth. I love that phrase, investing artificial distinctions with truth. We do that all the time. So these are all concepts of the ordinary mind, right? Our ordinary mind is impermanent. It constantly changes. The mind that we have right now, the thoughts that we have, is very different than the thoughts that we had when we were 6 years old or when we were 6 months old, right? Our mind has changed. It changes constantly. If someone praises us or something good happens, we feel happy and confident. And if someone insults us or something bad happens, we get angry or depressed. Chagdad Tuku says that anger branches out like tributaries of a river, and we relive memories, rehearse our anger, and react by creating more harm. The internal stimulus and its many tentacles of impulse, action, and reaction in the mind are all impermanent. But think about it. All of those impermanent impulses, actions, and reactions, that's what we think we are. We tend to think that we are that. I'm someone who likes these kinds of people and doesn't like these kinds of people. I'm someone who likes doing this and doesn't like doing that. I'm someone who feels this way and not that way, right? We attach ourselves to our thoughts and our feelings and our concepts, and we think that that's who we are. But we're not. If it was, I mean, we shed that skin all the time, every second. We're constantly changing. So how can that be who we are? If that's not stable in any way, how can that possibly be what we tack our sense of self on? The true nature of mind is more like the white space on a page, while the concepts and emotions that arise in the mind are like the words. So we experience and identify with our thoughts and feelings. But there is some ground or openness from which those thoughts and feelings arise and into which they return. And that openness, that ground, is the nature of mind. To better understand this, when a thought arises, we can ask ourselves, where did that thought come from? Where did it go? What is its nature? If we examine thoughts, we won't find anything permanent or substantial. In fact, we will find nothing existent at all. And this is why we say that the nature of our thoughts, whether positive or negative, happy or sad, is empty. Emptiness doesn't mean that nothing is there, because thoughts continue to arise. In a relative sense, they are true. We have the experience of these thoughts arising. That is our relative experience, and that's true. But in the absolute truth, they are empty. The true nature of thought, of mind, of every being, of all phenomena, is empty yet fully evident. This is one of the reasons that doing the meditation that we did at the beginning of the class is so helpful. Because normally we chase our thoughts. We identify with our thoughts, and we grasp onto them, and we get attached to them, and we cling to them, and we follow them. And whether our thoughts are good or bad, whether they make us happy or depressed, we really hold tight to them. We want to believe that that's who we are. And so when we do the stabilizing the mind meditation, it relaxes that habit of grasping onto our thoughts and chasing them. You can instead let them pass by and just remain focused on your breath. And that just helps to relax that grasping habit, chasing these thoughts that are not actually us. They are empty. And it's easier to realize that sense of emptiness when you first relax that impulse. So luckily, all of the distinctions that we draw between us and others, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm black, I'm white, I'm a Harry Potter fan, I'm a this fan, I'm a Star Wars versus Star Trek. I don't know how many divisions there possibly are. We think of a million divisions of, well, my thoughts and feelings are different than your thoughts and feelings. And how amazing that I'm not my thoughts and feelings, and you're not your thoughts and feelings either. So no matter what concepts are coming out of our mouths that we're arguing about, We are not those concepts. We are not those thoughts. We are not those feelings. That's not truly our nature. We're just, think about how impermanent your thoughts are that come through your head and how different they are from the thoughts you had maybe a few years ago or when you were a kid. And think about being judged by that moment in time, by just that brief moment in time. Maybe there's times in your life and you're like, I'm the best. I'm just great. I'm so good at this thing. And then you have another day where you're like, oh, I suck at everything. There's nothing I'm good at. Imagine being judged for your whole life by just like 1 second in time of what your thoughts looked like. Be like, that's not me. That's not me all the time. But that's what we do. We see this moment in time, these people who are of a different political party than us, or they are of a different race than us, or they are of a different, some kind of different thought group than us. And we judge them completely for that, and forgetting that is just this one moment in time. That is just this one life. It's so brief. It's not who they really are underneath it. We all have the same nature. And all of these thoughts and concepts and emotions for all of us, they arise in the same way from that empty ground. That ground or openness that is the nature of mind. And that's what we have in common, really. And we're all suffering from chasing those thoughts, feelings, and emotions and believing that they're real. So, according to His Holiness Pen Rinpoche, the Buddha's omniscient wisdom has been within every sentient being from the very beginning. Our Buddha nature is exactly the same as that of the completely enlightened Buddhas, as well as that of the tiniest insect. There is not the slightest difference between them. It is just that, like the sun shining in the sky becoming obscured by clouds, our Buddha nature became obscured by our dualistic thinking and emotional afflictions. And there are these two other wonderful quotes that I want to share. The Buddha Shakyamuni said in the glorious rosary sound of the Lion Sutra, when the bud of the complete wisdom body of Buddha has not opened because of temporary stains, it is called Buddha nature. I'm going to say that again. When the bud of the complete wisdom body of Buddha has not opened because of temporary stains, it is called Buddha nature. And Nagarjuna said, when it is springtime, people say water is warm. In wintertime, they say it is cold. Likewise, when Buddha nature is covered by the nest of the passions, it is called sentient beings. When Buddha nature is separated from the passions, it is called Buddha. So when we talk about attaining enlightenment, we're not attaining anything from the outside. There's nothing that we have to get or that has to be given to us from the outside. Our Buddha nature is already there. We just have to polish it off and let it emerge. So now, I thought we could end the class with a guided meditation, developing a view of the equalness of all beings requires repeated contemplation. It's not something that happens on the surface of the mind. You can have a nice theory of equalness, but that will not necessarily alter the way that you actually relate to other people. So let's give it a try. We are going to contemplate each of the three aspects of equanimity. The suffering of all beings, who are equal in their desire to find happiness and avoid suffering. The kindness of all beings, who are equal in having been our parents. And the essential purity of all beings, who are equal in their true nature. So after contemplating each one, we will allow the mind to relax. So what does it mean to relax the mind? This is not ordinary relaxation in which you just sit back and let the mind wander like daydreaming. Instead, we are letting our mind rest naturally, uncontrived, aware, and open. You basically just let it be. You don't try to think anything, you don't try to not think anything, you just allow your mind to rest in its natural state for however long that it remains there. You don't try to hold it to it. You just let it be. Today, since we're doing this meditation together, I'm going to use a timer, but if you do this meditation on your own, go at your own pace. Allow the mind to remain relaxed for however long it remains genuinely relaxed. And then when thoughts start to arise, which they will, when thoughts arise, continue with the next contemplation. So you may find at first, when you relax your mind, you may find that you can relax it for like 1 second, and then a thought arises. That's okay. Over time, you will be able to relax the mind for longer periods of time. And it's actually more about paying attention to your mind, and just when the thoughts arise, you continue with the next contemplation. And then also when you're doing the contemplation part, when you notice your mind getting really like stagnant and it no longer feels fresh, when your contemplation no longer feels fresh, then you can move to relaxing your mind. Then the thoughts arise, you go to the next part of the contemplation. That gets stagnant, you relax your mind. And doing this process of contemplation and relaxation, it's kind of like a waterfall, how a waterfall gently like bounces off rocks on the way down, and it keeps the water bubbling and fresh. So this is actually this process of contemplation and relaxation. It keeps our contemplation more fresh, so it doesn't become stagnated, but also it allows us to go deeper with the contemplation. The relaxation is an important part that helps to deepen the realizations of the contemplation. And by alternating between them, you avoid falling into the extreme of either conceptual analysis or non-conceptual blankness. And so you can use the positive concepts in the contemplation part. You use the positive concepts to transform negative ones, and then let the mind rest. And then in this way, by letting the mind rest, you lay the foundation for immersion in the natural state, which is the true nature of mind, which is great equanimity. So take your meditation posture, straighten your back, have your hands relaxed in your lap, your eyes are gently open. Take a deep breath, let it out. Now, visualize one person that you are biased against. There's probably plenty to choose from, but just start with one. One person who you are biased against. Now say to yourself, this person, just like me, wants to be happy, doesn't want to suffer, yet out of ignorance is working at cross purposes to that very goal. The actions you've judged so harshly result from misguided efforts to find fulfillment or end suffering. How many times have you done the same thing? So just consider for a moment that this person, just like you, wants to be happy. Now expand the visualization to include everyone who behaves like this person. Remember that, like you, they all want to find happiness and avoid suffering. Unaware of what actually creates happiness and suffering, they are sowing seeds of future misery. Finally, expand the scope of your meditation to include all beings. You can gradually expand it larger and larger until it includes all beings. Now, let the mind relax. Now I want you to think of someone that you dislike or are critical of. Any one person that you dislike or are critical of. Contemplate the fact that, although you can't perceive it, that person's true nature is a state of pristine purity. Your criticism of them is based on your ignorance of that nature. Now remind yourself that the true nature of everyone who is like that person is pristine purity. And then contemplate that this is the nature of all sentient beings. And then allow the mind to relax. Now, imagine that all beings have been your parent many times over. Even if you don't believe that that is possible, practice this meditation as if it were true. I want you to picture an enemy. We can all recall at least one or two people who we feel have made us or others unhappy. So practice thinking of that person as having once been your own loving, kind mother. And consider that this being who has been so kind to you, whose nature is completely pure, is planting seeds of suffering instead of happiness through lack of recognition of that nature. How can you help them? How can you repay such kindness? Now expand your focus to include everyone who behaves like this person. All of these beings were once our own kind mother, and their nature is completely pure, but they are planting seeds of suffering instead of happiness through lack of recognition of that nature. How can you help them? How can you repay such kindness? Then expand your focus to include all sentient beings who at one time or another were our own kind mother. The nature of all sentient beings is completely pure, but through lack of recognition of that nature, they're planting seeds of suffering instead of happiness. How can you help all sentient beings? How can you repay such kindness? Now make the aspiration to repay their kindness. Even if you don't know how, just make the aspiration to repay their kindness. Allow the mind to relax. Then give rise to compassion and make the aspiration to realize the essential equalness of all beings. allow the mind to relax. Next, make a commitment. I will practice this meditation on equanimity until my mind no longer vacillates and I attain an even, steady recognition of the equalness of all beings. And once more, allow the mind to relax. Then, pray that by the blessings of your object of faith, whether those are the Buddhas, or if you have another object of faith, by the blessings of your object of faith, may you come to realize the equalness of all beings. And again, allow the mind to relax. And always, at the end of your practice, remember to dedicate the merit for the benefit of all beings. And so we'll do that now. The dedication prayer is on the last page of the opening prayers packet. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms.